start. So if I just welcome everybody who's joined. This is the third webinar in our series, Sex, Relationships and the SCI Man, and it's Meet the Partners. So we've been inundated by men, basically, for the last couple of weeks, and it's time to hear from the women. The next one is going to be the psychosexual therapist take, which is Michelle Donald, coming to do a sum up. She's tuning in to these webinars as we go along. She's got loads of experience dealing with relationship and sex issues for people who have spinal cord injuries. So it'll be really good round up. So if you've not signed up for that one already, please do email. So I think the best way for us to start really is for the two women who are sat in front of all of us introduce themselves and talk a bit about their partners, I guess, a bit about their relationship, about the injury, and I think, not to give you too much of a list of stuff to cover in one go, why they wanted to do this webinar. Jen, do you want to go first?
Okay. Yeah, I've been with my partner for 21 years coming up, and we were both in a car accident 20 years ago, and he broke his neck at C4 complete, so he can't move from below his shoulders, so he can't move his arms, legs, he's got no feeling. We were both only 18 at the time, and I broke my back, and then he spent 2 years in the spinal unit, all but a month, in Salisbury. What else did I need to start saying?
And I guess talk about why you wanted to do the webinar.
I'm normally quite open to talking about anything a bit too detailed sometimes, and I want to, I don't know, get somebody to take on, I don't know, a bit of a guide of what not to do, because we've made loads of mistakes before, what to learn from, and that is okay, and it's just a different way in a lot of senses.
Amazing. All right, thank you very much then, Jen. For people who have not met, who weren't here last week or who were, Anne is Jen's partner. So it's the other take. Luisa, do you want to chat a bit about your relationship, the injury, and why you wanted to do today?
Yeah. Okay. Hi, I'm Luisa, and I am married to someone who was injured in 2014, which was 8 years ago, just coming up to 8 years. We have been together for about 18 years, married for 16, and we already had children when Nev had his accident. He broke his neck in a diving accident, and he is injured at C5-6 level. So he's incomplete, so he's paralyzed from the chest down, with limited hand function, bicep and a little bit of tricep use. He is a manual wheelchair user, fortunately for us. And the reason I'm doing this really is because one of the things that was most important to me at the time when Nev had his accident, obviously having had like a kind of like a life established and a relationship well established, we were faced with the what the future would hold. Where do we go from here? What's going to happen? What's it going to be like? And the thing that I personally needed as a partner more than anything was just to know if there was a life ahead of us, were things going to be okay? Were we ever going to find a normal? Were things ever going to be normal again? Were we going to make it? Was there a life for us together? It's just so bewildering. You just don't know, and you can only get that from people who have been there, or who are there. And something like this just would have been amazing, I think, for me. And if I don't do anything else for partners and injured people, where for the rest of my life, if I can at least just give people like a frank and non-sugar coated just idea of the reality, and also some optimism, because it isn't really awful. It isn't like everything is over, and so things have changed and things will be different, but you feel like you're staring into an abyss when you're first injured, or when you have a family member that's first injured. And it's just really nice to kind of have somebody there just I don't know, holding the space for you and just saying, it's okay, yeah, it is really, really, really shit what's happened to you, but you're going to be okay.
Well, I think that's a great place to start. I mean, when we talked before, we talked, and when we started chatting just this afternoon, you were talking about your new job, and one of the things that struck me during our first conversation was the impact on your relationship, Lou, and in terms of gender roles. And you talked a bit about the fact that things got turned on their head, and what was expected from you out of the relationship changed. Do you remember that discussion?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah. Yeah, it's right. It's one of the things that have just kind of, this just sort of happened. It was very organic, really, in how it happened, rather than me and my husband sitting down and saying, right, well, now this has to happen this way and this has to happen this way. It just sort of happened. I was suddenly responsible for, I guess, like the more sort of gender specific roles. I mean, obviously it's been very stereotypical, but things like, getting stuff down from the loft, or cutting the hedges, mowing the lawn, putting the bins out, all of the kind of non-nurturing, more practical, hands-on, hefty stuff. Just suddenly had to do it. And it's very frustrating for my husband, because he just feels so powerless seeing me having to do everything. Is that what you were?
Yeah, that was kind of what I was talking about. I was also talking about the fact that obviously you felt that you got into like a kind of caring, a more caring role, and your whole life was based around his wants and his needs to an extent.
Yeah, that is a massive shift, and I think that kind of became apparent to me over time. I mean, obviously, when you have a family member or your partner or whoever who's injured, it is all about them. It's about their rehab. It's about making sure that they are are well and they're getting back to health. But then also ongoing, they have what they need in terms of where they live and everything like that. And that is kind of what life becomes like from my point of view. That never really changes. Our lives certainly, definitely very much centre around what Nev needs and when. And I don't mean that, we just like, to hell with everyone else, we just, we only worry about him. But you do find that there are things that you just can't do, or you can't do in the way that you used to, or you have to plan ahead, or you have to be less spontaneous, and that does actually become a way of life. So it's not like, I'm constantly getting up every morning thinking, oh God, what does he need today? We're going away for the weekend. Oh, it's all about him. You do get used to it. but you do start to realize that it does kind of take over a bit. I guess that's just the nature of it, of having a physical disability, is because the world is not built for people with physical disabilities. As much as as much as they make efforts to do so, it's not designed with disabled people in mind. So you always have to think, and you always have to plan. And it's actually quite fun finding out things the hard way. I mean, we treat every new experience like a little adventure. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you learn from it, and then you just think, right, well, we're not going to do that again, or if we do that again, we're going to do it this way. And we have a lot of those lessons, a lot of those experiences, which is another reason why I think it's good to share this stuff. Like Jen was saying about how, it's good to be able to say, well, we've been there and we've done this, so we can save you the trouble. That it is important to find things out for yourself, but it's also quite nice to get a heads up.
Do you have sympathy for that then, Jen? Like the accident kind of making stuff more in your relationship about Anne, or what was your experience after it all happened?
Well, when Anne came out of hospital, and it was the first time we'd lived together, and we were only 20, and we had a carer in a tiny little bungalow that we didn't know. I found it really difficult to let somebody else do things for him. And then I kind of, even though the carer was there, I did do a lot of things for him.
Why did you find that difficult? What was it about
I think I wanted him out. I think because we'd been not separated, because I used to go and stay over at the weekends at the hospital, but it'd been such a long time. We always had people around us, and then to have somebody that you don't know doing things for him, I just wanted him to myself, I think. But that was a bit of a problem, because we accidentally fell pregnant with Cam about 3 months after we moved in together. And then because I fell pregnant, my priorities changed because of my back problem. So I was struggling with a lot of pain and moving about and things. And when Cam came along, he took up all my time, energy. So Anne actually lost a lot of weight because I was used to doing things for him, and he wasn't used to directing his care so well, probably. So he did lose a lot of weight. But you do learn a lot of things. You make so many mistakes, and you try and plan everything. And you do lose that spontaneous bit of life. But then over time, you do try and get these little bits of it when you can.
What was interesting, hearing you talk about that for me, is you're talking about having a baby and that kind of taking the attention away a bit from your relationship and everything. And I'm sure that's something that everybody kind of experiences, but the spinal cord injury adds that extra dimension.
Yeah.
So what?
Can't help. Couldn't hold the baby. You couldn't do anything which obviously was really difficult for him, because he just wanted to help, and he hates seeing me in pain, he hates me struggling. But yeah, I was in a lot of pain, and because I had to have I had some rods in my spine. I had to have them removed when Cam was 1, because one of them had snapped. And then we had to have one of our mums stay for 3 months afterwards in our little bungalow with a carer. They had to sleep on the sofa bed in the lounge kitchen for months, because I couldn't pick Cam up because the bones had to refill, and then Aunt couldn't help. But Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose looking back and laughing about it now, like, but when we spoke about like accepting carers into the house, like, and this is something we talked about with the guys last week as well, and the fact that it's good to have like outside carers coming in, so you maintain the idea of the role of being a wife first and foremost, or a partner, I guess, first and foremost. I can't. It must just be hard having someone in
now
all the time.
Sarah, and she's really helpful. And the one we've got at the moment, she's been with us 7 years, but there's still times, lots of little things that you still end up doing. So we always generally, normally, I make lunch, I feed Ant, we eat together, dinner the same. He wakes me up with his catheter blocked in the night. He needs his towel over his head. He needs his pillow moving. So it's little things like that you still do, which isn't a problem, but you do need to not do majority of it. Otherwise it can get a bit silly.
I think you were talking before about like getting frustrated with like a towel not being picked up on the bathroom floor from the carer, and not taking responsibility for the carers that you'd employed.
Like the carer, he tends to not to let her feed him because he doesn't want her. So again, you become conscious of that, and then you kind of, if I go out, is he going to eat? And then I'll come back, or if he hasn't eaten, I'll come back, and then I'm annoyed with him because he hasn't eaten and he needs to eat. And again, and if you've got the right carer, then it's okay. Like, there's still things, but generally things like eating are essential, especially being in that way with the spinal injury. You need to keep your weight. You need to feed your body for your skin, especially, and the bed rest is a killer. When we moved here, over the years, there's been a few months at a time where Ant's been on bed rest. That's been challenging.
So explain a bit about the bed rest and what's.
When it varies depending on what the mark is, what the issue is. When we first moved here, Cam was only 2.5. We were in the middle of nowhere. I didn't drive, and he was on bed rest, and we only had agency carers as well, and they weren't that great. We had like a main one, and then every 2 weeks we kind of have somebody different, and the common sense was out the window. So anyway, keep Cam, who was only a toddler, to try and go between both of them to make sure Ant's not completely bored out of his brain, trying to keep the toddler so he has some connection with Ant and not out the way as well. So that was difficult. But again, there's times when I have been able to sit with Ant, and we've gone through, I don't know, box sets of series during the day when Cam's at school, when he was 4 or 5, and had bed rest as well. So again, but there's times you do just let go of all the shit that you need to do, and actually let's just have a day or two of just watching.
Yeah, bringing it back to you guys, basically. I just, from my perspective, like having someone like a stranger in the house that is a necessity must be a massive adjustment. I know we've talked about this before, Luisa, but do you have, and we talked about agency care as well, do you have stories basically about this?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, I promise no sugarcoating. it still does my head in even now. It's like, it's the lesser of two evils, basically. I mean, we were absolutely desperate to get some level of care when they first came out of hospital, because we had two children. One was in reception and one was in nursery. So I had that to deal with. And we were desperate to get something in place. And we did fight for a long time to get help with funding for that. But it wasn't the magic bullet that I was hoping it was going to be. Because obviously with that comes the fact that you have somebody coming into your home, and we used an agency because we needed like them to basically do it all on our behalf. We needed them to source the PAs. We tried sourcing them ourselves, it's just hopeless. We needed them to manage them, pay them and everything else, so that we didn't have to do anything. But of course, agencies have the same challenges as any business. They have a high turnover of staff, they struggle to retain their staff, and that's not just the carers, that's people at like management level. So we have had so many different like account managers, the people that would handle our account, and lots of different PAs come and gone. Some were okay, some were just awful. Again, the advantage of having an agency is that if somebody turns up and they're absolutely horrendous, you're all within your rights to say to them, this isn't going to work, find us somebody else.
So who have you had turn up who's been absolutely horrendous then?
Oh, it's too many to mention. No, not really. Well, like for example, people who turn up and they have absolutely no experience whatsoever. I mean, literally no care experience, let alone how to deal with a spinal cord injury. And it's basically like spinal cord injury 101. Like the moment they walk through the door, you're having to tell them everything. You're having to tell them, what a leg bag is and what AD is, and just, all the things that they're being paid for. But even not necessarily just that, just like basic stuff like put some clothes on, please don't have your boobs hanging out while you're dressing my husband. And
is that
wash, please don't smoke in your room, we've asked you not to. This is how you wash up a plate. This is this is how you flush a toilet. This is a toilet brush. In the toilet, stuff like that. And you wouldn't think that you would have to tell these people these things, but you do.
There's no
Sorry, Jen, what did you say?
There's no common sense. I'm laughing. Same things happen to us so many times. It's just, don't think you need to explain the basics of things, but they've been on like a 2 or 3 day course, whatever it is, agency, and if it's the first time and they can't barely speak the language as well, and then when you've got somebody in a wheelchair that can't move their arms to even indicate what direction he wants you to be, oh, my finger, but they're looking at his toes, or oh, my button on his pillow, he needs it to turn the TV over. But they're looking at his button on his t-shirt. Or trying to brush his teeth. It's really frustrating because as well as trying to help them, you're almost training them as well. And sometimes you end up doing it yourself because you're not getting them back again.
Yeah, there does come a point we find especially with the dodgy ones, there comes a point where probably about halfway through the assignment where it's like it's unsaid agreement that you're not coming back. So then Nev will start trying to do as much for himself as possible. He'll start to ask me to do things, he'll start to ask the kids, and then of course the resentment then builds up because I've got stuff to do and I'm thinking this person's being paid to be here. Okay, so they're probably not being paid very much, but they're being paid to be here. They may as well be doing what they're here to do. If I have to have somebody in my house, they can at least do what they're here to do. But it's just a question of just trying to keep everybody sane until they go, and then and then you get the new one in, and then you have like a new sense of optimism and like, this is going to be the one, this is going to be great. And don't get me wrong, every now and again you do. And the one we've got at the moment, she's become a regular. She's great. She's lovely. We get on really well with her. You know, she's no more domesticated than your average 19-year-old, but I can cope with that because she makes Ned happy and she fits in with us and she's a good laugh. And
so what is it that makes a good carer beyond not having their boobs out, obviously? And we will come back to that.
Well, Ned would say having their boobs out was
okay, all right, yeah, but he's not here.
No.
So
okay, just someone that you don't have to tell over and over again. Like if you say this is how we do things, this is what this is for, and this is how we like it done, so not have to repeat that every single day, and for them to have just some common sense. You know, if I'm just trying to think of something like, you know, like if the dog shits on the carpet, that needs clearing up. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that I expect my carers to clear up after my dog, but or you need to let someone know. It's just little things like that. I really don't think we're expecting a lot. You just expect to just, you know, when you've said this is how you do something, then you do it, and not to you know, to understand the fact that they're dealing with somebody who, you know, for whom day-to-day life isn't awful, but is challenging, and that is not made better by somebody drawing attention to the fact that everything is challenging, you know, not making it worse by making them repeat themselves over and over again and point out the things that are putting them in danger. And, you know, like that's something that comes up all the time, which is a real pain for Neb, is like if they don't deal with his catheter properly, or they don't deal with, you know, all the issues around continence and everything. We're talking catheters, leg bags, flip flows, all that kind of stuff. You know, if you don't do that properly, then he ends up, you know, covered in wee, and he's got to then deal with the fact that it's like a reminder that that is an issue for him, and then it's the time that it takes to get it sorted out, and just it psychologically for him it chips away, and I think that that's the kind of thing that is completely unacceptable, because when you're caring for someone at that level, you know, and you're supposed to be like a specialist in that kind of care, then that's basic. That's the kind of stuff that someone shouldn't have to deal with. You shouldn't have to say, I can't do that, or that is going to hurt me, or you have just hurt me there, or, you know, please don't ram my feet into the radiator. That's just, you shouldn't have to draw attention to his injury and his limitations by pointing out the obvious to someone who's there to make life easier, not harder.
You want them to actually want to be helpful and supportive in what way they can. Otherwise, what is the point of them doing this job? Because it can make somebody's life by having a decent carer, somebody that wants to help you in whatever way they can. Because you don't rush trying to get. We've had carers where they literally start with a minimum of like around as if they've got somewhere to be when they live in, and you don't feel like you can ask. I don't like asking for help, and I do, but when you've got somebody that kind of rushing around doing the minimum and you feel resentful because you're paying them, and why have they stopped doing the basics of what they should be doing and then rushing out the door? You don't feel like you can ask them for help, and you're not getting a very good quality of care.
And does that cause more tension in your relationships?
It has done.
As a result.
Yeah, there's been times because it causes arguments between them, your husband not directing his care enough, and I see it. I do tell the carers certain things, but I prefer to leave Ant to deal with that, so I'm not being picky as much, and it's his carer.
Yeah, so it's you. I suppose it's you having an argument with them to get them to do the care of what they need
Yeah, it's like
to do, basically.
it's like a triangle, because I've been very stubborn since the outset, because I felt like pretty much everything I'd taken on. So the one thing I wasn't going to take on was going to be the management of these people coming into our home, and that, you know, that's something that I never can do. And so I will relay my frustrations or my concerns to him, because I want him to deal with it, because I draw the line at having to deal with that as well, which obviously creates then this silly little scenario where I'm saying something to Nev and then he's saying it to them, and then they're coming back, and that winds him up. He gets really annoyed because he's not here dealing with it a lot of the time, so it's frustrating for him. He gets frustrated because he wishes, like I do, that they could just do what they're supposed to do and there not be any problems. He feels guilty because he knows that the only reason that the carer is here and doing my head in is because, you know, as he sees it, is his fault because they're here for him. And sometimes also he gets defensive on their behalf, and that's the thing that's been really hard in the past, is if he likes someone, and I don't take a particular liking to them, I then actually feel like a bit of a gooseberry. I feel like I'm the one with the issue and that I need to just keep quiet. And I think the reason Nev gets defensive about them is because he feels responsible because he's the reason they're here. And he also feels a little bit out of control because he doesn't know what to do about it, and, you know, and frustrated. So that comes across as defense. So if I complain about someone, he will stick up for her, and then that makes me feel like, it makes me feel awful. And then it makes me feel like I then can't say anything. And then it makes me feel, I mean, it's so base, but you know, it makes me feel like he likes her more than he likes me. And the fact that this person has this very intimate relationship with him, and, you know, and she's coming into our bedroom and she's dressing him and undressing him, and, you know, they're giggling away and having a great laugh, and then there's me feeling like I can't complain about the fact that, you know, she's not put the bins out or didn't hoover a room or something. And then the gap between me and him starts to widen. And then I feel more and more like, you know, why don't I just go and live on my own? Why don't I just get my own bedroom, and then you two can just, you know, have your
and feel a bit left out. Because I remember our first proper holiday, I think, when we went to Florida when Cam was little, and spent most of the time with Sarah, because I'm off with Cam in the queues for the rides, on the rides, they're laughing. I'm getting more irritated because I feel like I may as well come on my own. But there are times where they do spend a lot of time together, the carers, and it has irritated me at times when you're busy doing shitty jobs and they're just laughing and having a great time. But yeah, no, that's kind of, I've experienced, not recently, but over the years, there are times when that happens.
So how do you resolve that then? How do you get beyond like that, those?
I get over my I think I was probably maybe insecure, not probably that happy in myself, because we've gone through years of it being challenging and us kind of being disconnected and not communicating very well. So then the little bit of time that he spends laughing with the carer, I kind of felt maybe left out. I think I've never actually thought about it that much. But looking back, then it was probably just my insecurities. because you want them to have a laugh with the carer. You want them to be able to be comfortable with the carer because they're doing all this stuff for them. And if they're not, then who's going to do it?
Yeah, what is something that I think is the reason why it bothers me sometimes is because Nev is often a lot nicer to them than he is to me. And I don't mean that he's horrible to me all the time, but obviously because it's like a professional relationship and because it's a lot easier to upset your wife than it is to upset someone you don't know very well, isn't it?
I mean, I'm a lot nicer in work than I am at home.
Yeah, and I know everybody does that to some degree anyway. I mean, we always dump on the ones that are closest to us, but you know, when it does feel after a while like, you know, it can get a bit wearing when I feel like, you know, he's all sweetness and light to them, and then when he talks to me, I barely get a grunt. You know, that's
taken for granted, probably.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jen, what did you say?
They probably take us for granted.
Yeah, totally. And the only way we've been able to overcome this in the past, and will continue to do so should it come up again, I mean it's come up less and less, is to just speak to each other. You know, we've gone out, just the two of us, and I've said to him that this is how it makes me feel. And he may disagree with some things, he may agree with some things. Very often it's stuff that he didn't even realise was happening. And I've just said, you know, it makes me feel like, you know, you like her more than you like me. And I know that's absolutely ridiculous, and I hold my hands up, there's nothing I can do about it. This is just the way that I feel. And, you know, sorry, it's just
important to say that, whether it's not, isn't it? Because the more you say time when they do bother you, it becomes even a bigger issue.
If you have these conversations not in the heat of the moment when the thing actually happens, but actually take it to one side, and even just as ridiculous it sounds, like we would say, right, we're going to go out and we're going to have a chat, and I'll have like an agenda of the things
I've done that.
Because it's the only way to make sure that you get everything addressed.
I've done that the same thing, because otherwise I would forget to cross. But we've gone through, there's been lots of times, like years, where we haven't communicated very well. The longer it goes on for, the harder it is to kind of go back, but not to build things up in your head. So like if he's not giving me enough attention, can you give me some love? I need some attention. I've got more open to saying things as they come around.
And do you find then that because your partners have serious spinal cord injuries, you felt more reluctant to make things about you and your relationship, or talk about your feelings, or is that?
Yeah, definitely. It seems so selfish at every juncture to say, I need this, or I haven't got enough of that, or I feel this way, or I feel that way. And if Nev's feeling particularly prickly, the comeback straight away will be, you think I don't feel like that, you don't think I feel angry, you don't think, and then it's just like, right, well, this conversation isn't going anywhere, is it? Because it's got to be about one of us. We need to just, and our conversations have evolved to get to the point where I say, right, look, I know it's really shit for you, and I know you have like 1,000,001 things that you would like to change, but can we just talk about me now and deal with that, and then we can talk about you? Because I can't continue, it's not fair for me to keep thinking that I can't say that I feel this or I feel that, because it's not as bad as you have it. Because what I feel is relative to me, and it's all very genuine. I mean, I'm not saying that, if you're being a complete selfish cow, that's okay, because obviously that's not okay. But it is okay to say, I'm not happy with this, and this is not working for me.
Exactly, and give him the opportunity to call you a selfish cow if that's how he if that's how he feels, and get that conversation going. Because otherwise you just sit on a feeling.
Yeah, and we have, and it rarely goes particularly well. I mean, if you say to someone, this is how I feel, and it's usually serious stuff, it's never easy to hear. It's never easily received. And especially if you're someone like Nev, who basically goes through life just pretending everything is fine. He is very much like, if you don't talk about it, it's not a problem. Why tug at any thread that doesn't need to be tugged at? I'm here, I'm living my life, you know, we're good, let's just go on and do it. And I'm completely the opposite. I'm like, no, if I have a feeling, I cannot sit in it, because it will just bubble, bubble, and bubble, and bubble. And then I'll just have a meltdown. And then I'll shout at everyone, I'll shout at the kids, I'll throw things, and then I'll feel like crap afterwards because I feel really guilty. So yeah, so every now and again we'll have a conversation where I'll tell him how I feel about something, and it won't go particularly well, because it will be something that he knows deep down, but has never really wanted to talk about, or never really wanted to hear. And then I'll feel bad because I've made him feel bad, and he might lash out and say something nasty, and then, you know, but then you come out the other side. It's hard. It is hard because we're still learning. I mean, we're 8 years in, and I still feel like we've just scratched the surface.
Do you remember being 8 years in, Jen?
No.
No, such a long time ago. I think it's like,
I remember certain stages that we've gone through. I can't think specifically 8 years in. I know we did go through and had to have, let me start again. Ant felt poorly a lot of the time, but he wasn't telling because he didn't want to be a burden. But by not telling me, it created much bigger of a problem. Instead of saying, I feel like shit, he just he didn't barely say anything. I would talk to him, but he'd be watching the TV. I'd get really small answers from him. You wouldn't believe it now, the way that we talk to each other. I demand he gives me a But yeah, no, we went through times where I really didn't think, I knew that he loved me, but I didn't think he actually wanted to be with me anymore. And that could have actually been 8 years in. Because I'd say to him, oh, let's go and do this with the kids on the weekend. Shall we do this? He would never make plans, but that was because he never knew how he would feel on that day. But I would have been able to support him better and not been such a nag if he'd just told me he didn't feel right. But then he went for, how many years ago was that? 5 years ago, he had the bladder, part of the bowel added to the bladder to make it bigger, because that was causing him problems and not feeling well. He'd have blocked cavities all the time. He still does, but infections, and he just wasn't well because the bladder had shrunk so much and he couldn't stretch it back out. And he had a colostomy bag fitted at the same time. So about 4 months after having both of them, it was like he just felt much better in himself, and you could tell.
And that is when things started getting more physical for you guys again.
Yeah, I think I can't think exactly the first time that we were kind of reconnecting, but I think it was just like a gradual thing, because you build things up, like for sex, you build things up too much in your head. Like you've got to perform, he can't do anything, I've got to do everything and make it interesting. So and when you've had children and things, your body's not the same and you're insecure about that, and you feel like you're too much on show and you haven't had sex for years, how do you start doing that again? So I guess we gradually just build it up, kissed more, hugged more, laid next to each other more. So there wasn't such a big gap on the bed when we're watching TV. So I would just do little things like that to just feel a bit closer, instead of saying, instead of him taking a tablet and it not working, and then spend 20 minutes trying to get things working, but still feel sexy, still keep in the moment. That don't happen.
I mean, there's no spontaneity. I mean, like Nev and I, we used to be the kind of couple that literally just like nip to the toilet in the middle of a party, or I'd just join him in the shower and stuff like that. I mean, not all the time, you know, we weren't like bunnies or anything like that, but we had that spontaneity. And that has just gone completely out the window, because there is no spontaneity when, you know, there just isn't. I mean, unless it was all about me. If I was to just strip off and say, you know, come on, how about it? But then it would be like, all right, I'll have to meet you upstairs, so get the lift down and then meet me up there. And then, you know, by the time, it's not like you can just pick me up and just run upstairs. There has to be planning, there has to be, you know, and you've got other people in the house, and it just, yeah, it's not, yeah, spontaneity is definitely gone.
I don't find it as bad now, because we don't really have sex the traditional way. So
what's the traditional traditional way then, Jen?
Do you want me to draw you a picture, Tom?
Just go into the vagina, Tom.
Okay, all right, yeah. I don't know these things.
He doesn't have one of those, Jen, so
no, it's all new to me. You're educating me here. So so you don't have sex the traditional way? Sorry, go on.
So, but we get close in other ways. So like we just start kissing each other, start making out more than we have sex, or I don't think so much, don't build it so much in my head. So let's just kiss. Let's just be naked and rub our skin.
I think part of the issue, certainly, that Nev and I have, is that we're trying to make it what it used to be, and it just can't be. But we haven't got to the point yet where we know what the new sex life looks like, because we don't know how to get from where we were to what we can do now. I mean, we've tried all different kinds of things, you know, like pills and injections and things like that, but again, it's very hard to maintain the moment when you're relying on the person that you're going to have relations with to administer the whatever the thing is that you need to make things happen, and then there's uncertainty over whether it's actually going to work anyway. And especially when it's failed a few times, you just start thinking, oh my god, what's the point? You know, I didn't want it that much in the first place anyway. You just feel like you've got to, because that's the thing that, you know, we don't do anymore. And I think it's hard to, like you said, you know, there's little things that you can do. It doesn't have to be about like penetration, which is, it's kind of that's what you think of when you think of sex, isn't it? You think you're like, you know, getting off and through penetrative sex, and you forget about all the other stuff, and then it becomes easy to just think, oh well, that doesn't work, so we'll just do nothing. And Ev and I went through a period where it was nothing, and then I was miserable and he was miserable. He was even more miserable than me, because he thought I didn't love him anymore, and he just thought I just didn't, because it just all becomes a huge thing, isn't it? It's like the thing we never talk about. We seem to have everything else sorted. You know, the house is sorted. We kind of know what we're doing when we go away. We kind of know what we're doing day to day, but that's not sorted. And it's really hard because neither of us really know what we're supposed to do. And that's not something that you're equipped with when they come out of rehab. It's like you have to just, this bit, you just figure that bit out on your own, you know, and if you want to. So we just, didn't bother for a long time. And I now know that I have to make a lot more of an effort to give him a kiss or give him a cuddle or whatever. And of course, you always have to go and get it. And, you know, you don't have, like what I was saying before about how things have changed. You don't have someone coming up to you and wrapping their arms around you while you're standing at the stove. That, you know, that kind of thing that is normal life, that what you're used to, or what I was used to, that doesn't happen anymore. You know, if I want to cuddle, I have to go to him and sit on his lap, or, you know, it sounds so small. It's like, how
No. I mean,
how hard can it be to do that? But it's on a day-to-day, when you've got a million other things to do, it's very easy to just not bother, and then you just end up getting further and further apart. And you, coupled with the fact that you have you know, somebody coming into your bedroom, into your personal space, dealing with, you know, your husband physically. I mean, it doesn't bother me that much, but I'm sure it can't help.
Yeah, this is the low cut top.
And it's certainly not a recipe for intimacy, is it? When you've got a bedroom that is frequented by someone who's not a member of your family, and that person has, you know, intimate, in a physical level, not obviously on an emotional level, but intimate contact with your hubby. At
a time when you haven't felt it. Exactly. You haven't felt that you've been intimate. Jen, there's a few questions I want to get through, and I'm just really conscious of time going on. Jen, I want, before I come to the questions that people, and if people do have more questions, then please send them through either through the chat function or the question and answer function. Jen, we got Ant's review of The Womanizer last week, but I've heard that it's been a game changer.
Sorry, say that last bit again.
I've heard it's been a game changer.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know where to start. Yeah, no, it is quick and easy, helps you out. He'd seen it before online when he'd been looking at sex toys, because we'd had, over the years, we'd bought all different types of vibrators and things. Don't always work very well, and they need to be a certain way, these vibrators, because he would use his chin to help wiggle them about and push them in. So a lot of them, they were too weighted down the bottom. It didn't quite work out. He couldn't get the angle properly, and we've got a collection of toys. Okay, I've got some drawers. I'm organising it nicely in my wardrobe so no one can see it, and I can find what I want quickly when the time takes us. But yeah, no, he didn't buy it, and then we saw it in a sex shop when we went to Vegas, and bought it then, and it was one of the best things that we'd bought, really, because it's easy. It curves around your body. It can be a little bit loud, but
it can be loud, or you can be loud.
Both,
okay.
Stick some Marvin Gaye on.
Yeah.
Political shit on in the background. That doesn't.
I dropped a lot of hints before Christmas, but they obviously didn't go in. I'm just gonna have to go and buy myself one and then just say, you're buying me this.
Yeah.
I think it was feeling well though. That
Oh, you're breaking up a bit there, Jen, at a really crucial moment, I feel.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that there was a time where we were using vibrators and toys, but then weren't intimate for a few years, and he wasn't now. He didn't want to use. My friend actually bought me a vibrator for Christmas, and he wasn't very happy about it. Not that because of using it. That was before he'd had his operation and was feeling better about himself. But now he's always online looking to see what other gadgets we can incorporate.
I think that was Lou. I think that was Jen saying buy your own there. As advice, and maybe the rest will follow. I guess it's trial and error as well, Jen, that you've had some success with the toys. I'm gonna go. I think it's the difficulty is whenever I chat to you guys, just get started, and it's feels like it's gonna stop. But I'm gonna go through these questions. So bit here talking about anger and the anger of other people in society. I suppose your own anger in the face of your partner's anger. Do you have any hints or tips for dealing with anger?
You definitely can't just ignore it and hope that it goes away, because that's rarely the case, certainly for me. I do find that I can wind myself up because although it's very satisfying to think to yourself when something frustrates you, it's very satisfying to think, and this is wrong, and this is wrong, and then they did this, and then this happened, and I bet this is going to happen, and I bet it's going to go this way. That does feel quite cathartic, but it's not at all helpful. And I've kind of learned through some CBT that I've had that in actual fact, it's much more better for you in the long term to just stop at that point. And instead of thinking, like you think you know what's going to happen, or to just stop and not add to it, not keep piling one thing on top of the other. Whatever it is that you're angry about, just try and just let it be about that and not everything else at once. I don't know if that makes sense.
That definitely makes sense to me. Not always easier said than done in some circumstances, I can imagine.
And I think that I don't think I've expressed myself enough. I think that I have felt so bad about being angry, because I'm not the one who's injured, that I have kept a lot to myself. And I think actually, it's within my rights to be angry about things from time to time and to show my frustration. I think if you know deep down in your gut that you do the right thing and you're not a selfish person, then there's nothing wrong with being angry, expressing that. And I think I've always been quite surprised at how open to it people are. No one has ever said to me, "Oh goodness, I can't believe you're upset about that," or, don't you think that you should be worrying more about him than yourself? Nobody has ever said anything like that to me. If anything, people have said to me, "I'm surprised you don't use it more often. I'm surprised you don't, I'm surprised you're so cool about this, and I could never put up with that," or whatever. So, don't ever feel like you're going to be judged, or people are going to be surprised. You're entitled to your anger. You are totally entitled, because it is hard.
How's anything going to change or improve if you don't speak about it either?
Yeah, I guess I'm so sorry, Jen, you broke up a bit there.
I said that of course it's fine, you should be able to, maybe not in the moment when you are so angry, but if you don't say what you're angry about, how is that problem, or how is anything going to get better or improve?
I've found, sorry Tom.
No, go on.
I want to make sure that anybody who's in this situation has this. There's a Facebook group which is called the SCI partners, I think it is. That's an amazing group, because you can go on there and you can literally just, you can let rip, and there's always someone who totally gets you, doesn't judge you, because you're not having a go at your partner, you're not having a go at other people that have a spinal cord injury, you're airing your frustrations to people who know exactly what it's like to be in your position, and that has been really useful. Because even just the very act of writing a post and just splurging across the page everything that I'm pissed off about, sometimes I don't even then send it. Sometimes that's enough. But it's really nice, if you do, to have someone come back at you and say, do you know what, you're totally entitled to feel this way. I would feel that way too. Or, you know, and then give you some practical advice. Because the last thing that you want when you're feeling like that is for someone to try and tell you that you shouldn't be feeling that way, or that you should handle things differently. I think sometimes you just need to be heard and just say, yeah, that's, you know, it's legitimate the way that you're feeling.
Do you guys have any other pointers or tips or anything for anyone listening? Anything that's worked for you, or that we haven't covered today before we sign off?
What was the question? There was a question there. Oh, it was about anger. Yeah. Okay.
It's fine if not. We've kind of whizzed through everything. I guess if people do have questions they want, then I can take them on and direct them on to you afterwards. I've got to say to both of you, thank you so much for doing it, for agreeing to come on and speak about everything so honestly, and I think you're both incredible, and I've really enjoyed getting to chat to you over the last couple of months. I've laughed so much over the last couple of months chatting to you both. So thank you very much for that.
You're very welcome. I'm more than happy to. I don't feel like I've actually contributed very much other than just waffling, but I'm more than happy to answer questions or comment on anything at any time if anyone's got anything to say. I hope it hasn't been too bleak.
I don't think it's been at all bleak, not at all, just honest. Yeah, incredible. So thank you both very much. Obviously, thanks to everyone else who's tuned in to watch this webinar, and then we'll see you in a couple of weeks. I've got lots of good comments coming through for you guys. So thank you very much, everybody. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you.